Hey guys, I'm just fucking sending out a new tweet and then we will be golf tango golf.
We are on the record on February 15th, 2022.
Well, somebody's having a good snack.
9:03 a.m. This is the videotape deposition of Brittany Pause.
Can you please introduce yourself? Oh, I'm sorry, you forget to swear me in.
Yes, my name is Amy M. Clark, court reporter, CSR number 8753. Ms. Pause,
Okay.
please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Sure. My name is Brittany Paz.
And just for the record, we're going to take in this subject to the protective order that's been entered in this case.
Okay.
There's no protective. Is there?
I don't think we have one in Fontaine,
I'm
actually.
not sure we do.
Okay.
I don't think we do.
My apologies. I'll have to check.
Before we get started, can I amend something that we talked about yesterday?
This is kind of a completely different case.
Yeah,
Well,
you get to read and sign.
No,
yeah,
no, no.
you were rather she.
No, I want to add something. Just it was on the subject of Attorney Bankston asked me about a Bloomberg article that was referenced by Mr. Jones, and I didn't know which article it was, but I located the article, so I just wanted to bring it to your attention and put it on the record.
I'm not.
It's an entirely different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a different
Okay,
case,
okay.
different subject matter.
Okay. Well, I guess Attorney Block can
I'm
email
also
you.
not, we're not terribly concerned with what your attorneys prepared you on after your obligations for that deposition.
It
I'm
wasn't.
going to object
It wasn't
because
anything she prepared me on, but okay.
Well, I mean,
Go
just
ahead.
because this is put on the record and it may be used in the Sandy Hook case, and I was taking that deposition, it's our position, Ms. Paz was ordered by the court to appear yesterday for a deposition, prepped on those topics. We do not feel she was prepared, and anything she did last night after her obligation to the deposition is completely irrelevant to us. That's our position on the Sandy Hook.
All right.
Oh, so I'm not sure if you guys remember, but we did watch this a while back before I went on a brief hiatus. Oh no, we've got homeless people. That's not good. I'll help you guys. Here. We'll put this, Buck. Buck, we need more things. Don't have nearly enough construction materials. We're gonna pause this and that as well. Okay. Okay, so what I was saying is, I'm not sure if you remember the last time, but she was totally unprepared, like always. Like all of the InfoWars people, they're always unprepared for their shit. So, basically what that means is she's sitting here trying to enter things in. This is clearly a different deposition, as I've just stated. So I'm not. I'll have to infer as to which case they're going on here. Do they say? Yeah, no, it doesn't say particularly for what. thing. So we'll just have to
Challenge.
figure it out as we go.
What, Ms. Paz, what do you do for a living?
I am a practicing attorney in Connecticut.
Okay, and today we are obviously in
That's
Austin,
sad.
Texas. You're not going to be practicing law today, correct?
No.
Okay. What were you tasked with doing today?
For this deposition?
Yes.
In the Fontaine deposition, I was tasked with being the corporate representative for free speech in relationship to the petition that he filed.
Okay, and you just used the term corporate representative. What does that mean to you?
It means that I am a fact witness on behalf of the company.
Okay, and does that job have responsibilities with it?
I think I was tasked and have the responsibility to speak coherently on what the company knows or knew at the time that the allegations were made about the allegations in his petition.
And that's it?
In relation to this case?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a copy of the notice? I don't think I got one.
I'm going to need
Yeah.
so much shit.
When were you retained to be the corporate representative in this case?
It was at the same time as with the previous cases, so January 31st, February 1st, around that time. It's about 2 weeks ago.
Who retained you?
The company.
No, who specifically?
I believe Mr. Jones retained me.
He called you?
Did I speak directly to him at the time? No, I spoke to Attorney Blott.
Okay, so Ms. Blott reached out to you to be the corporate representative?
Almost necessary. Sort
And
of.
Mr. Pattis.
Okay.
So Attorney
they-
Blott and Mr. Pattis.
Was it kind of like a conference call with everybody on it? Or did Mr. Pattis call you and then Ms. Blott called you?
I think Mr. Pattis called me and then Attorney Blott called me.
Okay, and you have a relationship with Mr. Pattis, correct?
How's that
I have a
going?
prior
People
professional
around?
relationship with Attorney Pattis, yes.
Okay, do you carry a personal relationship with him in any way as you sit here today?
No,
Okay, so y'all aren't friends.
I wouldn't consider us friends. I consider us work colleagues.
When Mr. Pattis called you to be the corporate representative for Free Speech Systems and InfoWars LLC, what was your reaction?
I don't know that I had a reaction. He had a need for someone to serve as the corporate representative. He asked if I would be able to do so, given the time constraints and my other work obligations. I considered it. We had some discussions about it, and ultimately we decided it would work.
Okay. You understand that Free Speech Systems and InfoWars LLC have had a couple of different corporate representatives previously, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, and when Mr. Pattis retained you, did he tell you the time constraint of you only have 2 weeks to prepare?
Yes, I was aware. I think I had already seen the deposition notice.
And when Mr. Pattis was telling you about the time constraints, did he also mention the amount of work and
So I
materials
need
that were going
electronics
to be
into
prepared for these
construction
depositions?
parts.
Yes.
It's going to be rubber and copper.
So he told you, Mr. Pattis did, that you'd have to review over 100,000 pages of documents.
He said that there were those types of volumes of documents that were a part of the case, yes.
And you agreed that you were, able-bodied enough to be able to be prepared and review every single one of those documents.
I don't think anyone is able to review every single one of those documents. I think what I was tasked to do is try to be as prepared as possible given the time constraints, because the court ordered a corporate representative to come in and cogently talk about these topics, and I did that to the best of my ability.
Okay. And did Mr. Pattis tell you that the judge in these cases, on the record, and we have the transcript, went into pretty good amount of detail as to what she expected out of you as the corporate representative in these depositions? Did you know that?
I didn't read the transcript, and I don't think he talked about the transcript. I read the deposition notice.
As we sit here today, if the judge had expectations of what a corporate representative should be prepared to do, would that be something you'd probably find helpful as you were getting started and preparing for these depots?
Would I have found it helpful to have read the transcripts?
Of what the judge specifically said for you as the corporate representative to be prepared to do in these rooms the last 2 days, yesterday and today?
Sure, it would have been helpful, but I did review the depo notice.
So if the judge said, I expect every single document to be read, would you understand that to mean that the corporate representative that sits down for these depots should have reviewed every single document?
I don't know that that's what was said.
I'm not asking you if you know that's what was said. I'm saying if the judge said that, you would understand that to mean whoever's sitting in the chair that you're sitting in right now should have reviewed every single document that was produced in discovery.
I don't know how to answer that. I don't think it's possible for one person to read all those documents.
I think you're right. So would it surprise you to know that the judge on the record, and we have the transcript if you would like to review it during break, said this would likely require multiple corporate representative designees for different topics to share the brunt of what would be expected. Did you know that?
I don't know. Like I said, I haven't reviewed the transcript.
Right, but one thing we can agree on is that you don't have the capacity to be fully prepared to discuss the topics in detail from the depot notices from yesterday and today.
No.
Okay. No, you don't agree with that?
No, I don't agree with that.
Okay. Well, you said just a second ago, to the best of your ability, not I'm completely prepared. So which is it?
I think that I have reviewed the documents that are relevant and to be prepared to talk on the topics that the deposition has noticed me for.
That didn't answer my question.
I think it did.
Okay. What was my question?
Your question was whether or not I am able to testify as to the topics in this deposition that were noticed as per Mr. Fontaine, and I am able to do that.
Okay. That wasn't my question, but we'll just move on from there. How much are you being paid?
As I testified yesterday,
For this case and this case only, how much are you being paid?
it was the same amount as the case yesterday. So as I testified yesterday, I was paid a flat fee of $30,000, and it encompassed both cases.
Okay. How much did you say yesterday? Okay. Okay. How much of the $30,000 was for today?
It wasn't divided up or allocated. It was just a flat $30,000 fee for the both cases.
In other words, it was just a flat fee, and the time was not specific.
So the $30,000 that you were paid was not allocated to the specific time that was done. Rather, it was just a flat fee to encompass all of it.
Yes.
Okay. Where did that number come from?
I believe I testified yesterday that we had, that there was a starting number, and that we negotiated from there.
Okay. What was the starting number?
I believe it was $25,000, and then I negotiated back at 30.
Okay. Where did you get that number?
Just given the amount of time that I thought it would take, how many documents I would have to review, how much.
Here's where I realize I don't have any of my chats open.
I
Hey.
thought it was a fair number.
Right, and I'm trying to figure out how did you come to the idea that $30,000 was fair?
As I just testified, the time that I thought it would require, the documents I would have to review,
Okay.
and the time.
So pausing that for a second and getting on to what I'm doing on stream, because I'm just staring at something and you guys don't know what the fuck I'm thinking. So we're going to be using conveyors here to move goods into these assemblies before carrying them onto the everything, right? So I'm going to be using flat conveyors to transport from these storage into these assemblers, from these assemblers into storage, and into these assemblers and into this storage. This is going to kind of be a tiered setup you're going to see when it comes to how construction parts and construction parts 2 are built. So we could see the construction parts require iron, wood, and concrete to create construction parts. So that's these 3 moving into these assemblers here. Each one will be given each of the 3 goods. And then those will move out into these, which will be taking the construction parts. Now, I'm probably going to go ahead and add another storage here, same lines, to bring in the electronics, right, as well as the construction parts from these. Now, electronics are going to have to be built out here, which is kind of why I've given myself some room. And eventually construction parts 3 and, oh God, I don't know how many fucking construction parts they have in this game. Yeah, construction parts 3. You can see here takes steel and construction parts 2, and it's kind of a layered system. So you can always build another layer and get more. And the way I want to build this is so I can kind of expand up. So if I need more construction part 1s, I can add more buildings and more length to these conveyors to get it out. Hopefully I won't need more throughput, because if I need more throughput, I'll have to add like additional sections of input here and supply down the line. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. And then we'll get back to the deposition.
Constraints involved in the case. That's how I came to that number.
How much time did you think it would require?
I would think it would require as much time as I could dedicate to it, but ultimately it ended up requiring probably around 100 hours of review time.
Okay. For this case specifically, how many hours did you take preparing?
So with the document review of these, just specifically related to Mr. Fontaine, including the interviews that I had with Mr. Daniels and other employees in connection with this case, I would say probably in the neighborhood of 10 hours. That also includes preparation with the attorneys discussing the case.
So 10 hours total?
Probably, yes.
Okay.
Out of 100 hours that you spent? Wow. That's 10%.
Do you remember how many topics were on the deposition notice?
I believe there were 8.
Right. So you spent roughly 1.25, an hour and 15 minutes per topic.
Well, that doesn't, you told me specifically related to Fontaine, so
Correct.
I testified that it's taken 100 hours of review time total to review all of the documents. So I think that per the 8 topics, if we're dividing them up, that would include all 100 hours. For the Fontaine documents specifically, it was about 10 hours.
Right. And
Right.
there's 8 topics for the Fontaine case, which
Right.
is why we're here today, correct?
Right, but that would also include the Sandy Hook discovery. So that would include 100 hours of review of that material.
Tell me how they're related.
A lot of those questions have to do with the company and the business structure of the company and the information about I might be referring to the other deposition.
Oh, and something I just remembered, I had previously stated on stream that I thought you take depositions like this to play it in the courtroom. That was incorrect. You do not generally play depositions in the courtroom. I think I heard that on a legal podcast recently. Again, I'm unfamiliar with this particular type of law. I didn't ever practice taking depositions or anything when I was working as a legal assistant and a paralegal. So, again, take everything I say with a hefty grain or 2 of salt when it comes to law. It's a complicated beast.
Notice.
I think you are.
Okay,
And we can print this out if you need to.
sure.
If you don't have,
I don't
bring it.
recall off the top of my head which ones those are.
Okay. Yesterday you came in and you had a pretty, color-coded, tabbed-up binder with a lot of information in it. You remember that?
Yes,
Okay. Today you don't have anything.
that was marked as an exhibit for that deposition.
Was there something in that binder that you would have needed for today?
Most of that binder were the video discoveries. Not video discoveries, the summaries that I had of the videos specifically related to Sandy Hook.
Right, so we don't need those.
I don't think we were talking about those for the Fontaine case.
Correct.
Right.
So you didn't bring anything with you today for this case?
Aside from the supplemental production that we produced yesterday.
Okay. And have you reviewed all of that production?
I believe so, yes.
When did you review it?
Sometime last week and through the weekend.
So that supplemental production was prepared and ready to go last week, and it was
No.
given to us today.
That's not what I said.
Okay. When did you review that?
This particular packet,
Yes.
it was emailed to me this morning.
Okay.
But
So
the
this-
materials in here had been started to be put together sometime last week.
How do you know that?
Because I looked at some of the Fontaine production.
Okay. Which parts of the Fontaine production were you able to see last week?
So, on our Dropbox that I believe I did mention yesterday, I did see articles, I saw blog posts, I saw and social media posts on Twitter, Facebook. I saw not just news articles, but articles posted by other people on the internet. I believe I saw our article. There was maybe a couple of 100 pages worth of material on that.
Okay. By a couple hundred, let's say 200.
You could round it.
Okay. So you got an additional 140 pages this morning.
Yes.
And you were able to review those fully?
I haven't read each and every line of these, no.
Have you looked at every single page at least?
I did try to look at each and every single page.
I didn't ask if you tried, Ms. Ms. Paz. I asked if you have looked at every page prior to you flipping through.
I don't know that I looked through every page.
Okay, so it's safe to say if one of the expectations today was to be able to testify to the discovery produced, there's probably some things in there you're not prepared to do, considering you haven't read it all.
Well, it was filed this morning or yesterday morning, so no.
Okay.
Did I give myself not enough room? Perhaps.
Were you surprised when you got a call from Mr. Pattis to be the corporate representative in this case?
I wouldn't say I was surprised. I knew he had been working on the Mr. Jones case for a couple of years, so I wouldn't say I was surprised.
When you say working on, he's been litigating it.
I believe he litigates the Connecticut cases.
Correct. So when he said, hey, I need you to go to Texas, did that surprise you?
Not really.
Have you ever given a deposition prior to yesterday?
No.
You ever served as a corporate representative?
No.
Ever gone to a, have you ever gone through a civil jury trial?
Have I gone through a jury trial? No.
Okay. So your background is in criminal law, correct?
For the most part, yes.
So when a civil lawyer calls you and says, I'd like for you to be the corporate representative in these civil matters, things you've never done before, you weren't at all surprised?
Well, Norm's not only a civil lawyer, but no, I wasn't very surprised.
I didn't say Norm was only a civil lawyer.
You said when a civil lawyer calls you, so he's not just a civil lawyer.
True or false? Norm's a civil lawyer.
He practices civil and criminal.
Well, there we go. So the answer to my question would be yes, and I don't need all the extra. You understand that, right?
Sure.
Right. Because I sat through yesterday, and unfortunately, Mr. Bankston is far more patient than I'm going to be. Okay? I'm just putting it out there. If I ask a question, answer the one that's on the table. You're a lawyer, you know what to do, right? Or do you not?
Is there an actual question there?
Yes. Do you know what to do when someone asks you a question in a deposition? Okay. Well then, based on what just happened there, let me tell you that when I'm asking a question in a deposition, let me finish and then answer so that the court reporter right here can get down a clear record, okay?
Sure.
That's just giving you another heads up, because when you said yes, you know what you're doing, you actually kind of violated a different rule.
I messed that up. That was backwards.
When you came to your $30,000 flat rate, how much were you estimating per hour?
I don't know if it actually works out to be that, but usually my hourly rate was around $350, but given the amount of time, I doubt it's calculated out to be that much.
Sure, I was asking how you came to that number, $30,000. It's a specific number, correct?
Sure, it's a specific number.
Okay, so you estimated, I guess, what, 86 hours of work times 350? That'd get us there, correct?
That's probably what it breaks down to, but ultimately it required more.
Right. Are you going to charge more?
No.
Okay. You mentioned that you talked with Mr. Daniels in preparation for today, right?
Yes.
How long did y'all talk?
A couple of hours. I think probably about 2 hours.
Okay, that was on the phone?
No, I spoke to him in person.
Where?
At the office.
Whose office?
The company's office.
In Austin?
Yes.
Okay. When was that?
Saturday.
Okay.
You guys get to see me fumble and flubble through all my crap.
You said you spoke with Mr. Daniels and other employees earlier. Who else did you talk to?
In connection with just the Fontaine case?
Yes, ma'am.
I spoke to Mr. Jones. I spoke to
Let's go ahead and
Mr.
get this one. I think I
Salazar.
put in a little bit better
I spoke to
thought to this one.
I spoke to the attorneys.
You said that plurally. Who are the attorneys?
I spoke to Attorney Blatt. I spoke to Attorney Pattis.
Okay. What was Mr. Battis's role in all of this?
I just generally were talking about the depositions and the information that I needed and required.
What'd y'all talk about?
I think that's privileged.
I didn't ask you if you think it's privileged. If it's privileged, Ms. Blatt will object and instruct you. But Mr. Pattis isn't an attorney of record here. He's not an employee of InfoWars, and you, in your capacity, weren't acting as a lawyer. So I'm going to ask you again, what did you and Mr. Pattis talk about?
I'm going to object to the attorney-client privilege.
I think that Attorney Pattis is an attorney for the company. Maybe not in this particular case, but he is an attorney for the company.
And Mr. Pattis was in Austin?
No, he's not in Austin.
Well, you said you spoke to him on this case, so he's not. You didn't speak to him here.
In person? No, I spoke to him on the phone.
Okay. And was Mr. Pattis giving legal advice?
About this particular case?
Yes.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. I'm just going to leave that there.
Yeah.
You understand that if practicing law in a state that you're not licensed is an ethical violation, and in most states, criminal. Do you understand that?
I'm not here to testify as to that.
I just asked you if you understood that.
I don't understand that.
Okay.
Whoa! Bullshit, you don't. Colin, fucking bullshit. You understand that without a doubt, bitch.
Mr. Jones, Mr. Daniels, Mr. Salazar, Ms. Blatt, and Mr. Pattis. Anybody else you spoke to on this case?
I don't believe so.
Do you feel sitting here right now that you're adequately prepared to discuss the topics that were in the deposition notice?
Yes.
Did you think walking into yesterday that you were prepared?
As much as I could be, yes.
I didn't ask as much as you could be. I asked if you were prepared, fully prepared.
Like I said, as much as I could be, yes. I don't think there's anybody else who could have testified any better as to those topics.
Okay. Did I ask that?
No.
Did I ask you if you thought there was anyone else that could be better prepared?
No.
Okay. Why'd you say it?
Because it's true.
Right. But I like hot dogs is true, but I'm not going to blurt it out randomly in a deposition, am I?
It wasn't random.
It wasn't, which is why I'm asking you why you said it.
And I just told you.
Because it's true?
No, because it's relevant to your question.
Okay.
Apparently, someone decided to tell her to be hostile to the fucking people who are asking questions today.
I truly want to get on the road back home today. You understand that? I'm not from Austin. Did you know that?
No, I don't.
Okay. I know you need to get back home too, right?
Sir, do you have a question for me?
You have a flight booked this afternoon, correct?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And it leaves at 4, right?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. Then you need to leave here by 4.
Yes.
Okay. And I'd like to get us both out of here. Truly. I don't want to be here any longer than I can be. But when you start randomly injecting information into questions that aren't asked, do you understand that that's going to make this a much longer process?
Sir, can you pose me a question?
I asked you, do you understand that?
I understand what your point is. Can you please pose me a question?
Sure. How old are you?
I'm 35.
Okay. Where'd you go to law school?
Quinnipiac University School of Law.
Okay. You said, I believe you're in your 10th year?
Yes.
Where's your office?
I have an office in Shelton, Connecticut.
Okay. Earlier you said you had a professional relationship with Mr. Pattis. You used to work for him, correct?
Yes.
How long?
About 5 years.
Okay, and that was right out of law school?
Yes.
Okay. What kind of cases did you work on?
Mostly criminal, but we did do some civil.
Okay. Did you handle any defamation cases?
No.
All right. There's a number of individuals at the company that have been with the company for much longer than 2 weeks, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Why do you think that you were the only person, as you stated earlier, that could have possibly been prepared to testify on the subject matter of these 2 depositions?
Because I think that you have previously tried to depose 2 other people. Those depositions, they were not adequately able to testify as to the topics that were presented.
That's an understatement.
I also think that perhaps they didn't have either the time that was required to dedicate to such an undertaking, and third, that I think that there is no one person that is in charge of this material at the company to testify as to it.
Okay. What did you do to prepare to discuss the company's policies regarding the factual vetting of information that InfoWars disseminates?
Sure. So I've spoken to, as we testified to yesterday, I've spoken to a number of other people in connection with the policies and procedures. So I spoke to Melinda, I spoke to Daria, I spoke to Rob Dew, I spoke to Alex Jones, a bunch of other people, and generally speaking, as far as the vetting procedures for sourcing and articles, the company's position is that it does not engage in journalism, so it requires the vetting be done by the sources that it's citing.
Okay. Right. I believe yesterday you said there are no policies at InfoWars for fact checking, I think is how it came out. You remember that?
Right, there are no written policies, but generally speaking, as I said earlier and yesterday, the company relies on the sources to do their fact checking.
Okay, and the sources are also, let's back up a little bit. Also, you said that InfoWars doesn't really have journalists. And by InfoWars, you understand, I mean free speech systems and its employees.
I understand.
You said that InfoWars doesn't necessarily have journalists. It's all punditry type things.
Right, commentary, blogging, that type of thing, that's right.
Okay, let's mark. Exhibit 1. We'll mark this as Exhibit 1, now that you gave me that answer. Okay. Exhibit 1, can you read for the jury who that's from?
It appears to be from Kit Daniels.
Okay, and you spoke with Mr. Daniels preparing for today, correct?
I did.
So you had spoken to him prior to you just telling the jury that there are no written policies and procedures, correct? Correct?
May I just look at this for a second?
Right, the question doesn't require you to know what's in there. I'm just asking you if you spoke to Kit Daniels before you just told the jury that there are no written policies and procedures.
I did speak to Kit Daniels,
Okay.
and I have seen this
Okay.
in the connection with, this is the company handbook that was produced to me by
There's no question.
Melinda.
There's no question on the table. You're just talking.
The question was, did I speak to Kit Daniels? Yes, I did.
Okay. And I'll trust me, I will ask you about Melinda if I need to. The front page of Exhibit 1, can you read who that's to?
It says InfoWars staff.
Okay, and the subject line, can you read it for me?
It says new editorial policy for all reporters, journalists, and writers.
I swear, so after reporters, what was that word you said?
It says journalists.
And you told us that you have seen this prior to today, correct?
This particular email?
Exhibit 1.
Well, Exhibit 1 is 2 things, so I want to know what part of it you are asking about.
Did you see the first page before today?
No.
Don't you think you probably should have?
Sure.
Especially if you spoke to the person that wrote it, who implemented the policies, correct?
I did speak to Kit Jones, so yes.
Daniels, correct?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I did say Jones.
Mr. Daniels, he withheld this information about sending this out, a specific policy that was implemented post the filing of these lawsuits?
I don't know that he withheld it.
Oh, but you didn't know about it, right?
I didn't see this, no.
Okay. You wish you would have?
Sure.
Because prior to me handing you that document, you also told the jury that InfoWars doesn't have journalists. And that document appears Mr. Daniels in a supervisoral role that is instructing requirements for journalists, right?
As I testified earlier, it's the company's position that we're not engaged generally in journalism.
Was not my question. My question was, Mr. Daniels is writing that to researchers and journalists.
It doesn't say researchers, it says reporters.
Excuse me, you're right. Reporters and journalists.
That's what it says.
Okay, and the key word there is journalists. And that's what I want to focus on, because you would agree that prior to me handing you that document, you were going to have this jury believe that InfoWars doesn't have journalists.
It's the company's position that we're not engaged in journalism.
Okay, wasn't my question. I asked if you were, prior to that document being handed to you, your testimony would lead this jury to believe that InfoWars doesn't have journalists.
Yes, that's the company's position.
Okay, when did that change?
What do you mean, when did that change?
Well, you had Mr. Jones 3 times, Mr. Schroyer, Mr. Dew twice, Ms. Karpova at least once, and that document in front of you, all stating that InfoWars does journalism and has journalists. So I'm asking you, when did the policy change to where they no longer have journalists and don't do journalism?
I don't think it's changed.
Okay. You would agree with me that every
I
single
love
person
this
listed before
lawyer
you
and his
is
line of thought.
more qualified to tell us what InfoWars does, correct?
No.
You think you're more qualified than which one? Which person that I named?
Well, first of all, I don't want to not just advocate, but I don't want to say that I agree with what you're saying, that these people have said these things in the past, but I'm here to testify on behalf of the company, not individual people, and what individual people may think about themselves and what they do.
Okay.
The company's position is that 98% of what we do is commentary on things that have already been in the news cycle.
I heard you say that 98% yesterday.
Yes.
Very specific number. Where'd you get it?
That's based on my conversations with Mr. Jones and the other employees, that a vast majority of what they do is just, like I said yesterday, the production process of looking through the news cycle and what other sources are saying and commenting on those particular sources. There are a small percentage of things that would probably be considered independent, such as the few articles Mr. Salazar did as an example, but that is not the norm or what the company is engaged in for the vast majority of it.
Okay. And I know that we have to say the company, right?
Yes.
Because there's a legal vacuum of LLCs. Who owns the company?
Who owns free speech?
Who owns Free Speech and InfoWars LLC?
I believe Mr. Jones owns free speech.
Right. And you understood earlier when I said Mr. Jones has been in a deposition chair, raised his right hand, and swore to God to tell the whole truth 3 times before you sat here, correct?
I know he's given 3 depositions, yes.
And Mr. Jones also started these companies, right?
Yes, he did.
And you're sitting here today saying your testimony is the company's position, but Mr. Jones testifying on the company as the owner and inventor of these companies, we should discount that.
I'm saying I don't recall what you're referring to in his depositions, but like I'm saying, after my conversations with Mr. Jones and others, as I've already testified, that is the company's position.
Do political commentary, people that do political commentary, do they have a duty to tell their audiences the truth?
I think that what we are offering are opinions.
Didn't ask what you're offering. Didn't even get close to that question.
Yeah, you said I'm offering political commentary.
Nope. If you listen carefully, I'll ask it again. I said,
Sure.
do individuals that do political commentary owe a duty to their viewers to be truthful?
And here's what my problem with the question is. When you're saying truthful, something is truthful if it's capable of being true or false. An opinion is an opinion incapable of being proven true or false. So that's why I'm having a problem with your question.
Okay.
Meanwhile, the rest of the world just goes, yeah,
The
journalists
things
should tell the
that
truth.
A political commentator say that can be proven true or false, does that individual have a duty to its viewers to be truthful in those positions?
So I think that the company's position has been that they do strive to put forth truthful information.
I didn't ask that.
But as far as a duty owed to the viewership or whoever's listening to the broadcast, I think what the company puts forth are the source materials and tells the audience where they can go find this information, and then that source has a duty to be truthful.
Listen to the question.
You've watched a number of hours of InfoWars, I'm sure, over the past 2 weeks.
Yes.
Okay. Surely you've heard Mr. Jones on one of his shows numerous times say his kind of a motto that he does when he's signing off that says, "We're the truth in journalism." Surely you've heard that if you've watched 100 hours.
I do recall him saying something to that effect.
What do you think he meant?
I don't know.
Surely if you're going to sit here and say that 98% isn't journalism, you'd ask him in one of the interviews, right?
Well, as I said, Mr. Jones has his own opinions, and this is something that you'd probably have to ask him.
Right, we did. He doesn't think in any way your 98% is accurate on any planet.
I don't think that that's accurate based on my conversations with him.
Okay, that's why I asked, did you ask when it changed? Because you read his depositions, right?
I didn't read all of them. I think my testimony was I didn't read all of them.
Why didn't you read them all?
Just time constraints.
You just didn't have time. Was that the only reason?
Yes.
Okay. The depositions that you did read, who gave those to you?
They were provided to me on our Dropbox, so it was the materials that were produced in connection with these cases, the Texas cases.
Who created that Dropbox?
You know what? I'm not 100% sure. We at one time did have a consultant that we worked with to try to put information on the Dropbox and organize it and try to help us find material, but I don't know anything other than that.
A third, not an InfoWars person,
No,
it's a
he's not
third
an
party.
employee. A third party.
Surely he signed the protective order, right?
I don't know the answer to that.
You didn't sign a protective order, correct?
No, I didn't.
Okay, and you're not an employee of InfoWars?
No, I'm not.
Or Free Speech Systems?
No.
Okay.
More concrete.
I want to get back to this 98% because you've said it twice under oath, and it seems like you base that number on all of the research and preparation you did for the two depositions yesterday and today, correct?
Yes.
Would you use some sort of algorithm or matrix to get to that number?
No.
Why didn't you settle for a whole number like 95 or 99, 97? How'd you get to 98?
I think it wasn't my number. I think that was a number that Mr. Jones had said that in his estimation, that's what he thought we did as a company.
Okay, so Mr. Jones is now the position, based on the company's position is that Mr. Jones believes 98% of what he does on air is not journalism, correct?
I think the company's position is that, not Mr. Jones.
Right. But the
yes.
company is basing that opinion on an interview it did with Mr. Jones, right?
It's not just that interview, no.
Okay. What else is it?
It was based on my interviews with the other employees as to the purpose and types of material that are put onto the air on a daily basis and how they do their production and what the purpose of those productions are. So I think that it's based on confirmatory interviews that I did with other people, not just with Mr. Jones.
Okay. Mr. Jones, did he give you a percentage?
I believe that that percentage came from Mr. Jones based on our conversation, but like I said, it was confirmed by my other conversations with people.
Okay, so other people in the company also are saying 98%.
I don't think they used that number, but their position to me was that the process is, and generally what they're engaged in, is commentary on what is in the news cycle and the process by which that happens.
Well, this is going to take a while. I fucked up my production line. I didn't have enough slag going around.
And 98% of it was baking cakes, and 2% of it was doing brain surgery. You would expect that I would be extremely qualified and adhere to the standards for the 2% of brain surgery that I do, correct?
I don't know how to answer that.
Well, let me ask you this. Because 2% is journalism, would you agree that InfoWars has a duty to make sure that what they report is true?
For the articles or whatever that are independent reporting, sure.
Okay. And when Mr. Jones or any other personality goes on air and says, I've done the research, I've seen the data, and this is my conclusion, what is that?
It's an opinion.
What if they don't say opinion? What if they say, based on the evidence, this is a fact?
I don't think that's what he said. That's not what he said.
Who and when?
I think you're referring to Mr. Jones's statement that I've done the deep research and I think this, etc.
No.
He did not say it the way you said it.
I didn't say he did. I'm not talking about that.
Okay.
I'm saying if a personality like David Knight or Owen Schroyer specifically, we'll focus on him, says, I've done the research and this is a fact. If that comes out of someone's mouth at InfoWars, there's a duty that it should be truthful, right?
I'm sorry, I don't know which statement you're referring to. Are you representing that Owen did in fact say that? Or are you saying, or is that a hypothetical question? I want to make sure I understand.
I'll say it's hypothetical right now.
Okay, if it's a hypothetical and someone is the original source saying this is a fact and and putting something forth as a fact, then I think there's a different standard, yes.
What do you mean when you use the term source?
What I mean is that someone has done vetting of a particular piece of information.
Okay, so when someone's talking about the vetting they've done on a piece of information, that's a source.
Right.
So if InfoWars is talking about the research and the review of data that they've done, and then they come out with a conclusion at the end of that they would be the source.
No.
How is that different?
Because when the research that they're referring to are other articles that have cited their own source and have done their own sourcing and their own vetting, they are not the source. The person that the information came from is the source.
But when someone from InfoWars takes an independent article and then says, I read this, I've done the research, I've seen this stuff, and this is my conclusion.
I don't think that's the context of the statement. I think the context is I've read this source, this is what I'm basing my opinion on, and here's my opinion.
Oh, so they definitely use the word opinion.
I don't think they definitely use the word opinion, but it was presented as an opinion.
How do the viewers of InfoWars know when it's an opinion or when it's fact?
Objection calls for speculation.
I don't know how to answer that.
If you want to just restrict those to form and adhere to the Texas rules, I'd appreciate
it. Get fucked.
Can you repeat your answer, please?
I said I don't really know how to answer that. I don't know what somebody else is going to think.
Okay. a source is used at InfoWars, who determines whether or not they're trustworthy?
So I believe this was a conversation we had yesterday too, but so pre-production, there's a list of sources. Each host has their own list of preferred sources that they like to go to. That source it changes over time based on my conversations with, for example, Nico. Alex's list now is not Alex's list from when Nico worked with him, but basically these are sources that the host prefers and has found to be reliable in the past, and so would then trust where the articles are coming from. Excuse me.
And you saw the lists?
Did I see the lists for each host? No. I did talk to Daria about what Alex's current list is, but aside from that, I did not do any research for other hosts.
What's on Mr. Jones's current list?
I don't know if this is an exhaustive list, but I know that he looks at Drudge Report, he looks at what is trending on Twitter, he looks at Zero Hedge, and there may be two or three others that I'm missing, but there's a list of 5 or 6 different sources.
Okay. Is 4chan on there?
No.
Why not?
I don't think that he does his sourcing from 4chan.
Okay. Does anyone use 4chan for sourcing?
I don't think sourcing is the right word, but I do know that based on my conversations that certain of the reporters, writers, probably a better word, uses that for tips. But I wouldn't say that it's used for sourcing.
Okay. When you say sourcing, is there an implication that sourcing is reliable?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. Can you rephrase it?
Something you use as a source is reliable. Something you use for a tip is just kind of what it is, and you need to go verify it.
Yes, that would be a fair assessment.
Okay. Now that you've seen Exhibit 1, you understand it's from Kit Daniels?
I understand it looks like an email from Kit Daniels, yes.
Right. And yesterday you testified he's one of the supervisor roles at the company, correct?
Yes, I think he started in that capacity sometime in 2018.
Okay. Why would he be sending that out to all journalists, among other people, if InfoWars doesn't have any?
I don't know why he used these specific terms. I do know that after the litigation, there had been some efforts made to try to put forth some standards, policies, and procedures that weren't in place previously.
Did InfoWars, in the Fontaine case, did InfoWars do anything wrong?
In the Fontaine case specifically?
Correct.
I think that in the Fontaine case, there was a breaking news story that Mr. Daniels saw a photo circulating on social media. He had seen that photo in a couple of different locations, and he posted an article the same day. It was late in the afternoon, and then left for the day, saw that it was inaccurate, and immediately took it down the next day.
Okay. The answer to my question is?
No.
No, InfoWars didn't do anything wrong.
No.
Okay. In the Sandy Hook coverage, did InfoWars do anything wrong?
Can you be more specific?
No. Do you think in any way InfoWars did anything wrong in the Sandy Hook case?
I don't know how to answer that just because I don't know what you're referring to.
Okay. Their coverage, was any of it wrong or inaccurate?
I think that most of the Sandy Hook coverage was opinion statements that the hosts and writers are entitled to have opinions.
Okay. Was any of it wrong?
Wrong factually?
Correct.
Which part?
Any of it.
I don't know what you're specifically referring to.
Well, I'm trying to figure out why, after the litigation started, that one of the supervisors at InfoWars decided to put a policy in place to protect the company if the company's position is it didn't do anything wrong?
I didn't testify it was to protect the company.
Okay, why would he put that in place?
Because I think that it came to the attention of the company that it was growing. There were a lot of different people involved, different departments, and that it wasn't being managed or supervised in an appropriate way, and they wanted to make certain policies clearer going forward. All of these things, like I testified yesterday, there were departments that nobody was talking to anybody. There's really no overall hierarchical structure. So after the lawsuits, there were efforts made to rectify that.
Okay, so based on that answer, we can agree on something finally, which is the way that these different departments were being supervised was inappropriate.
I just think it was not organized well for a company.
Well, you used the term, you said they were not managed appropriately, and then I inferred from that we can agree that they were managed inappropriately, correct?
I think they could have been managed better.
Right, wasn't my question, but it's
I wouldn't use the term inappropriate.
Okay, then I'll use it the way you used it in your answer. We can agree that InfoWars was managed. The way that InfoWars was managed was not appropriate. Correct?
Correct, it could have been done better.
Okay. Can I see that real quick?
This?
Yeah, I only have one copy, but. Okay.
That's delicious, delicious little food. Nom, 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 nom.
That policy, would you agree, was made to protect the company?
Which policy? The one in the email?
Right, the email that has the attachment behind it.
Well, the attachment is not the same thing as what is being cited in the email.
Okay.
So that's why I want to know which policy.
We'll focus on the policy in the body of the email.
Okay, so this policy in the body of the email regarding possibility of crimes being committed, that's the one you're talking about? Okay, what was your question?
It's made to protect the company.
I think it was made to give guidance on how to write articles in the future.
Why was it giving guidance to write articles in the future?
Because there was no guidance previously.
Okay, and the reason we're giving guidance is to protect the company, correct? I'm not sure why you're fighting me on this. It helps you.
I don't know why it would. I mean, sure, it helps the company, so there could obviate any potential future lawsuits. So sure, it could help the company.
Okay.
It could be for other things. I don't know if the purpose of it was that, but
it mentions in there that any story involving even the potential for criminal liability needs to be vetted by multiple, in all caps, editors, correct?
I'm going to object to the extent that it mischaracterized the content.
Ms. Blood, I'm going to ask you one more time. If you don't follow the Texas rules, and you can object to form or the other two permissible objections. Thank you. I'll ask if I need clarification to cure it. I'm not trying to be rude at all, but I'm having a hard enough time getting your witness to answer my questions. And if I have a bunch of speaking objections for you, that's just going to be, I don't think that we're going to be able to do this. We may have to get the judge on the phone. Okay?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
My question was, it says that that articles need to be checked by multiple, in all caps, editors, correct?
That's what it says.
Why would something need to be checked by multiple editors?
I don't know.
Prior to today, you had never seen that email?
No, I've never seen this email.
Okay. Right, and so whenever I asked you about topic 1 in your deposition notice, which were the policies regarding the factual vetting of information, nobody even gave you this document to prepare. True?
No, this doesn't have a bait stamp on it, so it wouldn't have been included in the material that I was provided.
So the only thing that you reviewed for this case was bait stamped?
I don't think the only material I reviewed was bait stamped. The depositions are not bait stamped.
Did you review any other documents that weren't bait stamped preparing for yesterday or today?
The depositions, as I said, were not bait stamped. I don't believe the petitions were bait stamped.
How many documents did you get through out of the 81,290?
Thousands of documents.
Let me finish my question, please. Out of the 81,297 documents, how many did you get through?
Thousands.
How many thousands?
I don't know how many thousands.
Tens of thousands? Fives of thousands?
Probably tens of thousands.
Okay. Did you get about half, maybe?
I'm sorry?
Halfway.
Halfway through what?
Did you get 40,596 documents through? That's half of the document.
I don't know. I don't know the exact number.
Right. And probably because you don't is because, I don't know, 22,000 of those documents were produced by InfoWars without bait stamps. Did you know that?
I know that there has been an issue with the organization of the production materials.
So surely you weren't shocked when you said that you didn't review, you've never seen this, but it doesn't have a bait stamp, right? Because you saw a number of documents that were produced in this litigation that didn't have those, right?
Did I see documents without bait stamps? Is that your question?
Correct.
I didn't see documents like this without bait stamps.
I mean like this.
This is an email.
Sure. You
I didn't
see
see any emails without bait stamps.
Okay, so we can, out of the production that's been given to us, all emails that aren't base labeled, we can take those out as you didn't read those.
I didn't see any emails that did not have bait stamps.
Okay, because that'll give us a better idea what documents you did get through.
Okay.
Because there's a number of them.
Okay.
Would you agree that Mr. Daniels is creating a policy for vetting information?
For vetting this specific type of information.
Right, so if I say all information and that's a specific type of information, the answer to my question is yes. True?
Not all information, just this type of information, yes.
Right. Other than the one that I just had the privilege of teaching you about, are there any other policies regarding the vetting of information at InfoWars that began February 2018 to today?
I don't believe so, but I will say just a caveat to this is, in my conversations, I don't want to make you think like Mr. Daniels didn't talk to me about this. I was aware of this, I just never saw this particular email. I just wanted to make sure that you're aware that it's not that I didn't know that he made this policy. It's just I didn't see this particular document.
Madam Court Reporter, I'm going to object to all of that as non-responsive. Other than the policy that you just got put in front of you today, you were also tasked with actually, let's back up, sorry. Other than that policy there, are there any other policies InfoWars has in place to vet information?
To vet information? No.
Okay. So from the inception of InfoWars to February of 2000, actually, I don't know what the date is on that.
June 2018.
June 2018, there were no policies for whether or not anybody needed to vet the veracity of information that was disseminated by InfoWars?
The veracity, no. I do believe, based on my conversations with people, that there was I don't want to say policy, but there was an understanding that there would be multiple sources used for articles, that you wouldn't rely solely on one source. But I don't think that that's checking the veracity of the information. So
outside of articles, what about with on-air talent?
I think that would apply on air as well.
Okay, so anything that went out on air that was quote-unquote journalism would have multiple sources to back it up. True?
Assuming it was journalism, it should have multiple sources.
Okay. Who told you that?
So that's based on my conversation with Mr. Daniels. When I asked him about, prior to him being a supervisor, if Kurt Nimmo had the same policy. We're calling it a policy, although it's not a written policy, but it is an understanding that it would have multiple sources. When I spoke to Adon, his position was similar, that he agreed that he was expected to cite to more than one source, and that during the writing process, and they circulate amongst themselves articles, they would try to check to make sure each other's articles have multiple sources. But again, that's not checking the veracity of the source. It's just checking to see if you have multiple sources.
I just asked for names. I just
Sure.
asked for who. I didn't ask for anything else. I'll ask you follow-ups, I promise. I've got a lot of them. I'm really good at follow-up questions. It's probably one of my best qualities. So,
I spoke to Adon and I spoke to Kit, and those are the two people I spoke to.
perfect, thank you. Are there any policies
There
or
we go.
procedures in place when
That's
it
what I was
comes to
looking for.
using anonymous sources?
Now it's nice and looking. That's looking good.
I'm sorry, can you be more specific? You mean about like 4chan, like that type of source?
Anonymous social media content. That would be what I'm referring to.
Okay. So if there is a policy or procedure about checking to make sure that something that's seen on a social media source and it's anonymous. So when I asked this question, I don't think there's a policy, so to speak. Information such as 4chan or on social media, I think I said earlier, those are used more so as tips rather than sources.
How do I turn the grid
So
on?
if it's seen on social media, generally would try to find another source or to at least make sure where that information is coming from is like not a fake page or something like that.
Okay. So, and by fake page, you mean a page that was recently created with a name of that's not an actual person and maybe a picture that's not of a person at all?
You mean like the profile picture?
Any of it.
One,
So
two,
when I
three,
talked
four,
to
five,
when I talked to
six,
Nico,
seven.
his basic premise when he was trying to vet guests, that was his process by just trying to make sure that a person was who he said he was. But as I said earlier, I think that sites such as 4chan were used more as tips rather than actual sources, and then they would try to go and verify it in another place.
Okay, like Twitter.
Like Twitter, on Twitter, Twitter has also links and sites to other news sources. So like if something was trending, it would link to other news articles, things like that. So Twitter could potentially be a source
You've
for links
used-
to other sources.
You've used the term trending a couple of times today.
Yes.
What does that mean?
On Twitter, there are I don't personally use Twitter, but on Twitter there are news stories that are trending for the day and the time. Some might be breaking news.
Oh,
so
God.
there's, things on Twitter with a hashtag that would be trending for that time period.
So the hashtag.
Okay, I need to take a quick breather. It is very hot in my room, and I need to let it air out. So I will be back shortly. Until then, I will leave you with the dulcet tones of some chill lo-fi.
hashtags that are attached to different categories of information.
And we're back.
Based on that hashtag, something could be trending if it was popular enough.
Sure.
Okay. We kind of went into the anonymous social media content policies, and it sounded like there were more like, they're not rules, they're like guidelines.
Guidelines is a good word.
Yeah.
Guidelines.
Yeah. Nobody's getting fired if they disseminate something that's completely factually wrong because they pulled it off of 4chan and threw it up on the page on Infowars.com, correct?
They could be.
Okay. Was Mr. Daniels fired?
No, Mr. Daniels was not fired.
Okay. Has anybody, to your knowledge, ever been fired for doing that?
For doing that, I'm not sure if for doing that, but there are people who have been terminated from the company.
I would assume so. It's been, I don't know, 30 years. But for the specific topic that we were talking about, which is, has anybody ever been fired for disseminating recklessly information that's just not true?
I don't know.
So when I say, oh, they're not going to get fired, and you say they could be, pure guess.
No, it's not a pure guess.
Okay.
Because when I've spoken to Mr. Jones and Melinda, who does HR, they couldn't name for me specific instances where people had been fired, but it is a possibility, and it is listed in the handbook as up to termination. So it is a possibility.
What about prior to June 2018?
This handbook was not made in June 2018.
Okay. When was it made?
It says effective date 10/12/2012.
Okay.
So that was when this was last updated.
I gotcha. So it's your position that that employee handbook was updated in June of 2018?
No, I don't believe that this policy was ever incorporated into this employee handbook.
Okay. Was that employee handbook made specifically for InfoWars?
I don't know. It says free speech systems on it. When I asked Melinda about the handbook, because I did ask to see it, she said it was there. It predated her tenure there, so she doesn't know who created it or when. It was updated on that date, but it had existed before that.
You did ask Melinda, though?
I did talk to Melinda about the handbook, yes.
Okay, and when she said she didn't know, surely you went and asked Mr. Jones?
I don't think Mr. Jones would have known. He didn't write this.
Okay. He's been at the company the longest, though, correct?
Well, I mean, it's his company, but
So
he wouldn't have written this.
So he would know when that was initially implemented?
I don't know if he knows that.
Right, because you didn't ask him.
I didn't ask him about the handbook, no. I asked Melinda. There was I can't remember the name of the woman that was there before her, but
Okay, let's break this down. You asked someone about the handbook, and they said, I don't know, that was before I started here, right?
regarding when it was produced?
Correct.
Yes.
And who produced it?
She didn't know who produced
Why it was produced initially?
I don't know why why it's produced, but
Right. So, yeah, this person says, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And that's where you stop your investigation?
the person who probably would have known didn't work there anymore, and I didn't know how to reach her.
You used the word probably, but you don't know because you didn't ask anybody that was there when it was implemented.
I couldn't. That person, whoever would have been there, is no longer there.
You don't think the owner of the company knows when he invoked an employee handbook?
No, I don't.
Why?
Because I don't think he would have had anything to do with this.
But you had conversations with him, right?
I did have a conversation with him.
And you'd seen this document before that, right?
Sure.
Okay. So you could have just asked,
I could have.
but you chose not to.
I don't know that I chose not to. I just didn't ask.
Okay. You either didn't care or you chose not to, correct?
No.
Okay. What's the other alternative?
That I didn't think he was a good source of information on that particular topic.
Do you think he's a good source of information on any topics?
Sure.
Like what?
Like what type of business the company is engaged in as he started the business, like what he is doing on a daily basis on his shows, like some of the structure of the company, that type of information.
What person at the company is in charge overall of making sure all employees follow the rules?
There is no one such person.
Okay, so now if Alex Jones tries to fire someone because they violated a rule, there are other, depending on the department, he may or may not have that power?
I didn't say that.
Okay.
Alex Jones is, obviously it's his company, so I'm sure he would have the ultimate say over whether someone got fired or not. But to a lesser extent, if there is some issue within a department, I'm sure the supervisor would take up the issue with the person, whatever the issue was. And if it escalated, I'm sure Alex would take care of it.
Okay, so when I asked who, if anyone, at InfoWars is overall in charge, the answer to that question is Alex Jones.
Whether he had an ultimate say, sure.
Were there any policy, the policies in place in February of 2018 regarding the reliability of 4chan posting, or the information in 4chan posts, and any facts or knowledge informing that position? That's one of the topics you're tasked with, correct?
I believe so.
Okay. What was the company's position?
On 4chan? On 4chan, I think, as I testified earlier, it was more so used as a tip, and then the general position guideline, I think is the word you used, was you should always make sure to have multiple sources. And that would include for 4chan.
Okay. Multiple additional sources. That's what you said?
I think, well, that says here multiple editors, but I think that it, based on my conversation, it was at least 2 sources.
Okay.
I don't know that there was a specific number attached to that guideline.
Who told you about the 2-source rule?
When I spoke to Mr. Daniels, he indicated that prior to this time period where he's the supervisor, Kurt Nimmo was the supervisor, that was generally his policy as well. That was confirmed by Adon when I spoke to him as well.
I can't remember if you spoke with Nimmo or not.
I did not speak to Mr. Nimmo.
Okay. Any particular reason?
I don't know that I had his information readily available, and I don't know that I had the time to talk to him. I spoke to a lot of people.
Did you ask for it?
For Mr. Nimmo's phone number? Yes, I did ask Melinda for it, and I don't know that she was able to find it.
Okay. Did she tell you?
Did she tell me?
Actually, let's back up. How'd you communicate with Melinda?
I spoke to Melinda in person.
Okay, and you just asked her for Kurt Nimmo's phone number?
I asked her for a bunch of phone numbers, yes.
Okay.
Kurt Nimmo's is among them.
Okay. And you can't recall whether or not you were given
No, I was not given it.
Mr. Nimmo. And what was Mr. Nimmo's position in February 2018?
I believe at that time he was the lead writer. So he would have been like the supervisor.
Who's the lead writer currently?
I believe it's Mr. Daniels.
Yeah, I don't care. It's messy. Deal with it.
Has Paul Watson ever held that title?
No. Paul Watson, I believe, has always been a consultant.
Okay. The analytics for the number of page views from Mr. Daniels' article received by Free Speech from February 14th to February 15th, 2018. Are you prepared to discuss that topic?
I believe I did see Google Analytics, yes.
I asked you if you were prepared to discuss the topic.
Yes.
Okay. When did you see Google Analytics? Was that part of this morning, or was that part of when you had it last week?
I believe I reviewed the Google Analytics when I spoke to Mr. Zimmerman last week, Thursday or Friday maybe.
And that was for Fontaine, not for the Sandy Hooks, correct?
I think for both.
Okay. What did Mr. Zimmerman have to say about the Fontaine case?
Specifically about the Fontaine case?
Correct.
I think that what he...
Let's back up real quick.
Sure.
I don't want any answer to start with. It might, maybe, I think. Not here for your personal opinion, and frankly, I just don't care about it. I want to know what you know, and only what you know. If you don't know, that's fine. You can say that. We have procedures in place here where we can go and cure those deficiencies.
Okay.
So don't guess.
I don't specifically remember what he said.
Okay. As far as discussing the analytics and the number of page views between February 14th and February 15th for free speech systems, you will be relying wholly on the documents produced to plaintiffs last night, correct?
That is a fair statement.
Okay. When you were...
In the documents that you produced last night, where is this?
Yeah, those are the documents that were produced?
This was what was handed to me by counsel, so
And when it was handed to you, Ms. Blott represented to you that that's what was produced to us last night?
I think so.
Okay, where in the documents, can you point where in those documents you're going to pull the analytics for the page views?
Oh, I'd have to look through every single page, sir, that was produced this. I've not seen this before this morning.
Okay, so yeah, so fair to say that if you've got to flip through everything, because you've never seen some of this before, that you're not prepared, right? I'm not trying to trick you, just
No, I
stating
mean,
the
I
obvious.
can't off the top of my head tell you a specific number without looking at a document.
Cheat sheet, look for the document.
You want me to flip through all couple hundred
It's
pages?
333.
Okay, so like I said, do you want me to flip through all?
Sure. I mean, if you are aware of what you're looking for, it's not hard to flip through 333 pages. We'll wait. I'm okay with some awkward silence.
I mean, I don't know where it would be.
I bet it's in that stack.
Oh,
You told me it was.
Well, I don't know if it is in this stack.
Well, then now you're
Showing.
guessing, and we already talked about what happens.
he is demonstrating to a fine needle tooth point that she is not prepared for the thing she was hired for. Once again, InfoWars fucking lied to court. They've done this every single time they've come. Because they have no fucking backbone. And InfoWars is a weaselly shit piece of cunt organization. And Alex Jones is a sniveling little coward who doesn't understand that he's in over his head. And he's trying desperately to bail himself out by rearranging money to all of his little places. Fuck them. Burn in hell.
When you guess.
I'm not guessing. I didn't put this document together.
Yeah, you told me it was in there. And then you said, well, I don't know if it's in here. So which one is it? Were you lying then or are you lying now?
I'm not lying at all.
Sure.
I just don't know what's in here because I didn't put this together.
Okay. Where's the materials you did put together for this depo? Yesterday, you had a very extensive binder with tabs and color coding. It looked very professional. Where's the one for today? Or are you just, this one is not as serious as yesterday's?
It's not that it's not as serious. There weren't a lot of documents in connection with this specific
It
case.
sounds like you were. You said, how am I supposed to flip through all these documents to find the analytics?
I don't know if the analytics are in here, is
Okay.
what I'm telling
Why
you.
didn't you bring them with you? If you needed them to discuss topic 4, why didn't you bring the information you need?
I don't know.
Because without that information, it's safe to say you're not prepared to talk about topic 4, are you?
I can't give you a specific number without looking at it.
Okay, and you don't, as far as right now, you don't have it in
I
front
don't
of you.
know if it's in here, no.
Okay. Well, I'm going to represent to you that that's being unprepared. And if I'm wrong, Ms. Blott will correct me right now.
You're wrong.
Okay.
Now, would you like me to tell you why?
No,
Or do you
I don't,
want me
Ms.
to
Blott,
just take
because the
her on
witness
record?
here, she's supposed to tell me. So actually, here's my question. Tell me the page views for February 14th, 2018. For the web page in question in this
I think I
lawsuit.
already answered your
How many?
question. I can't tell you a specific number without looking at the document.
Sure, take your time.
I'm not going to flip through all of those pages. I don't know if it's in there.
Okay. Well, what do you actually? Let's take a break. We're going to get the court on the phone.
Well, I think we should at least give the court reporter a break.
Yeah, we're going to take a. We're off the record.
Let's talk about this. We may be suspending the deposition.
We are.
Oh, they're getting their ass handed to them. Oh.
We are back on the record at 10:28.
Ms. Paz, we just got back from a break. I observed you walk back into the room with Ms. Blott and the documents that you brought with you today. Were you able to go through those documents during the break?
I did not look through the entirety of the documents.
Did you
I
look-
flipped through it.
Okay. before we call the court and inform the court that a question has been asked verbatim of topic 4 on the deposition notice. The witness has informed us that the responsive information might be in the set of documents that she brought with her today, and she is refusing to look through it to find that information. Before we do that, now that we've come back from a break, would you like to change your answers?
I don't believe it's in there.
Okay, so if it's not in there and you didn't bring anything else with you for this case, is it safe to say you're not prepared to discuss topic 4 today?
I can't discuss the exact numbers, but the Google Analytics are the ones that I reviewed that have been produced in this case. So it's in the production, but I just don't have it in front of me.
Right. I understand that there's 81,000 pages of documents. You understand that you're designated here today. 81,000, that's actually in the Sandy Hook case. In the Fontaine case, it's like 450 documents, right?
It was a much smaller number.
Right. And you understand that you're here as a corporate representative to discuss those documents.
The 450 pages that you just mentioned?
If the 450 pages contain the information that's listed in a specific topic that you were given to be prepared for.
I don't know if the Google Analytics were prepared amongst those 450 pages. I do know the Google Analytics were produced in connection with the general Sandy Hook case, so we did not make a differentiation between this case and the Sandy Hook case as far as the Google Analytics. We produced analytics for all of our landing pages. Amongst those would have been this particular article.
You're certain?
Right, so what we did was there were thousands of landing pages for thousands of articles and thousands of videos, and what I reviewed with Mr. Zimmerman were the thousands of that Google Analytics page that had those thousands of landing pages. And do I believe those were produced? Is that what you're asking?
No, are you certain the information for the Fontaine post is in those analytics?
Yes, it would have been in the landing page because it's all of our landing pages.
Okay. You understand as the corporate representative, you are tasked with being able and prepared to discuss the analytics of that post.
Yes.
Okay. Are you prepared?
I can't testify as to the exact number because I just don't have it in front of me.
Okay. I'll ask my question a simpler way. Are you prepared?
I don't have the number in front of me, so I can't testify as to the number.
So would that be on the yes side of prepared or the no side?
I don't want to agree with your words.
Okay. I'm not asking you to agree one way or the other. I'm just asking you if you're prepared to discuss topic 4.
And as I've already testified, I can testify to the exact number. I don't have the document in front of me.
Ms. Blatt, before we have to call the court, I really don't want to.
No?
Thank you.
No, I cannot testify to the number.
Yeah. No, you're not prepared to discuss topic 4.
No.
Okay.
Was that so hard?
Let's talk about topic 5. The analytics for the number of page views after a retraction was posted on April 2nd, 2018. Are you prepared to discuss topic 5 today?
That would be the same answer as the previous one.
Which was no, I am not prepared to discuss the topics that were laid out in plaintiff's notice of deposition of a corporate representative.
As far as the numbers, no.
Okay. I'm sorry. As far as the numbers, no, you were not prepared, or no?
That was your question, yes. Are you prepared?
Right. Okay. Just making sure. And that was a bad question. I will be the first one to say I'm going to ask bad questions. I do it all the time. Okay. Topic number 6. The company's knowledge of Mr. Fontaine. Are you prepared to discuss Mr. Fontaine?
Yes.
Okay. What did you do to prepare for that?
So in addition to speaking to Mr. Daniels, I spoke we spoke to Mr. Salazar, I spoke to Mr. Jones, I reviewed the documents
That should,
we had and
once
were in
all
the
done.
production.
We
And
saw.
I think that's the universe of information that I have on that.
Why'd you talk to Mr. Jones about the Fontaine case?
I wanted to see what, if anything, he knew about the case,
Did he
which
know-
wasn't very much.
Did he know anything?
No, not really.
He said not really, and he said very much. So what did Mr. Jones know about the Fontaine case?
I don't think he really knew anything except that there was this issue that happened and that it was rectified in a relatively short period of time.
Not asking you what you think, asking
That's
you
what
what
he
you know.
conveyed to me as what he knew.
Let's slow down. I promise I'll let you finish your answer if you let me finish my question. Not asking what you think, I'm asking what you know. So what do you know?
I know that he doesn't know anything aside from the article went up and it was taken down in a relatively short period of time.
Okay, that's Mr. Jones's knowledge of Mr. Fontaine.
Right.
Okay, what did Mr. Salazar have to say?
According to my interview with him, he thought that the article went up relatively late in the afternoon, but there were some red flags relatively shortly thereafter, within a few hours. I think it was pretty late in the afternoon, and I think that what he conveyed to me was that I believe people had left for the afternoon already, but that they had talked about it amongst themselves and that they agreed that it should be taken down, and so it was taken down.
Who is they?
According to my conversation with Adon, he spoke to the other writers. I want to say one of them, his name is, you know what, I'm not really sure the other two names. There's two other names. And then had spoken with Kit, and then they all agreed that it had been that it should be taken down.
Okay. If I wanted to know what other two writers were in the editorial discussion as to whether or not to take the post down, how would I ascertain that information?
I could probably get their names. I just can't remember off the top of my head right now.
How would you get them?
I'm sorry?
How would you get those names?
I could ask for them
From who?
from either Mr. Jones or Mr. Salazar or Mr. Daniels.
Let's back up a little bit. I thought you said Mr. Jones's knowledge was restricted to only knowing that a post went up and a post came down.
He knows who is in his writing department.
Okay. Are those the only two other writers in his writing department, or are there
There's
more?
a group of 3 writers that are generally the 3 main writers.
Who was working that day?
I'm sorry, I don't have that information in front of me.
Okay.
I think we produced an exhibit yesterday that it might have been in there, but
Right. And again, might, may, I think, I don't want them.
okay, I'm not sure.
It's not fair to the jury. The one job you have a couple of jobs sitting in that chair today. One of them is don't guess. And whether or not it's been produced is irrelevant to me, because I want to know, as a corporate representative tasked with discussing these topics, what you know, okay? Other than the 2 unknown writers, Mr. Salazar, Mr. Daniels, and Mr. Jones, did anyone else at the company have any knowledge of Mr. Fontaine?
No.
And I'm saying that from the date of February 14th, 2018 to today.
No, we don't have any other information on Mr. Fontaine.
Okay. You don't, that no one knows where he lives? Correct?
I believe I read in an article he lives in Massachusetts, but
Was it an InfoWars article?
no.
So then why do I care?
That's why I'm saying you're asking me what I know, and I'm telling you what I know.
On behalf, I'm not asking for your personal knowledge, I'm asking you your knowledge as the corporate...
Jesus fucking Christ, she is being obtuse to a level that is just infuriating for everybody in this goddamn proceeding, including me, and I'm not even part of it.
And I know it's a confusing topic for people that don't do this all the time, and I'm trying to be patient with you. But when I say what you know, it means what you know based on the list of instructions on information you were supposed to go and prepare.
And I
Okay.
do know it based on that because it was in the production. I didn't do any independent research, if that's what the question is.
Okay.
I read it in the production.
When you read it, did you ask, hey, where'd this come from?
where did the piece of paper in the production come from?
Correct.
No, I didn't ask where it came from.
Did you ask who pulled it and why?
No.
Okay. Did you ask where this was saved? Are there any others in that folder?
In what folder?
Whatever folder this was in.
I don't know what folder you're talking about. It was in amongst the production material on the Dropbox for this particular case.
Okay, so an attorney gave you a document to review, and you saw that it contained information about the plaintiff, right?
Information about where he lived? Yes.
Information about the plaintiff. I'm not splitting hairs here.
Right.
And so then when you got the deposition notice and you saw the company's knowledge of the plaintiff, and you were like, oh, that document definitely is knowledge of the plaintiff, you didn't ask any follow-ups as to, hey, where'd this come from? Why? When?
I didn't really think it was a relevant
I could do a
question,
better
because
job
it's
than this.
clearly not our article.
So it's does this ask for the knowledge of InfoWars articles of the plaintiff?
No.
No, it isn't. Other than that one article, were there any other articles that you came across or that were given to you?
There were numerous articles in the production
About Mr. Fontaine?
about the issue for which he's suing, about, I don't know if there's any more personal information about him other than where he lives in the articles, but there were numerous articles.
Okay. Is it all in that production?
This production, it's not in this production.
Is it in the previous production of the Fontaine case?
That's where I saw it, on the Dropbox.
Okay. Did you do any searching on your own to figure out if there were any other documents about Mr. Fontaine at InfoWars that were not in the production?
Did I independently do a search?
Right, because yesterday you said that you did a pretty in-depth search in the Sandy Hook case while you were at InfoWars, searching for documents and different things. And so I'm asking you, did you do the same thing in the Fontaine case?
Well, yesterday what I testified to was I did a search trying to narrow down documents that I should look at. So I did a search regarding search terms. Is that what you're referring to? Did I do the same thing here?
Let's break this down. Did you do a search when you did the search in the Sandy Hook case preparation?
Yes.
Was that search limited to only the documents that have been produced? Or was that at InfoWars, their email servers, or going through their files and that kind of thing?
No, I didn't do that, no.
Okay, so you relied on the documents that were given to you by an attorney.
Right.
This is the list of everything that's in the initial case. And then yesterday they gave us another. There's not a single article in here. That's what we're giving them.
I just conferred with my co-counsel, and he went through the indexing of the first set of production, and last night he and I had the benefit of going through the new set of production. I don't see any articles that you're talking about.
I'm sorry?
We don't see any articles that you are talking about referencing where Mr. Fontaine lives, what state he lives in, anything like that. So,
Well, I disagree. I recall specifically reading articles.
okay, show me.
I don't have the entirety of the production that has been produced in this case. I have the supplemental production, but I don't have that production.
You have, so all this information was sent to you on Dropbox. Is that true? You keep mentioning this Dropbox? Okay, did you bring your computer today?
Sure.
Okay, let's take a break. Let her pull her computer out and let her find the documents in the production that she has in the Dropbox, and then she can point us to what she's talking about.
We are back on the record at 11:02.
We just took a break so that you could look through some materials on your computer to find the document that we were talking about. The stack of documents that's next to you, is that the production that was made last night?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, can you flip to the last page?
Okay.
Okay, can you read the Bates number on it?
The last one,
Yes, ma'am.
DEFS 000334.
Okay. The article we were talking about that identifies personal information about Mr. Fontaine, what's the Bates number on that?
This one says Fontaine 001103 through 1104.
Okay, that would signify that there are 1,104 pages of production, correct?
I don't know how these Bates numbers are produced, but I think that's accurate, yep.
Okay, because when I asked you earlier how many documents were involved, it appeared the global number of documents was about 425, correct?
I think that was the number you put on it, and I said I didn't know how many documents there were, but that it was significantly less than Sandy Hook.
Okay.
I don't think I subscribed to that number.
Okay. How many documents roughly did you review in the Fontaine case?
A few hundred documents, probably.
Out of
Definitely-
1,100?
Definitely more than a couple of hundred documents. It probably would be in the range of 500 or 600 pages
Okay.
total.
So if there are 1,104 pages, it's safe to say you didn't review it all?
I don't know if that's the end of the production.
That's fine. But
Yeah.
if there are 1,100, you didn't look at 1,100.
I don't know that I looked at 1,100 pages, no.
Probably more like half.
I don't know how many.
Do you know when that document was produced?
It doesn't say when it was produced.
What's the source of that article?
You mean where did this article come from?
Yes.
I don't know how it came to be in our possession. I know what it appears to be, a American Statesman article dated 4/2/2018. But otherwise, I don't know where else it came from.
Okay. You don't know who in InfoWars found it, saved it, anything like that?
That's assuming anyone at InfoWars did do that. I don't know if that's accurate.
Okay, so this production could have come from outside of InfoWars and someone slapped a Fontaine sticker on it?
No, someone could have sent it to us. It could have been produced in connection with the litigation by one of our attorneys. I just don't know how it came to be in the company's possession.
Okay, so as far as the knowledge of the defendants with regards to Mr. Fontaine, you aren't sure where that knowledge came from or how it was given, if at all, to InfoWars?
Regarding his location in Massachusetts?
Yes.
Well, I could testify as to the source of my knowledge of these articles, but as far as how these articles came to be in our possession, no, I don't know that.
Okay, and you understand that you're here to testify on how they came, our possession. It's not your personal knowledge, but you're here to testify on the company's knowledge.
Yes.
Okay. And you can't do that as far as where this document came from, when, why, or how.
I don't know where this document came from, no.
Okay. Are there any other documents that contain information that InfoWars has on Mr. Fontaine? Similar
God, I
to-
swear, I would be such a better corporate representative than this person.
Bates don't go that high in this game.
I agree. Are there any others besides the one you're viewing now?
Yes, I do recall a report from a psychologist. I believe that might have been produced by plaintiffs. I recall reading a letter from a psychologist or therapist.
Okay, so Mr. Fontaine's personal information was shared with you and you have not signed the protective order? That's true?
I don't have I didn't sign anything, no.
So true.
Yes, that's true.
Okay. Did you come across any documents that were stamped confidential during your review?
That document may have been stamped confidential. I'm not sure.
In general, do you remember any documents that were
I don't remember anything stamped confidential.
Okay. Other than Mr. Fontaine's mental health records that were given to you by counsel and the article that is Bates labeled Fontaine 1103 and 1104, does the company have any other knowledge of Mr. Fontaine?
This might not be the only article that would list his location in Massachusetts, so I don't know if this is the only article, but I think that that's the entirety of what the company knows about Mr. Fontaine. That's correct.
Okay. Did you look at the posts that the company had done that displayed Mr. Fontaine's image?
Oh, you mean the specific, the photograph, you mean?
Any post that the company has made
I
with
viewed-
Mr. Fontaine's photograph.
Sure, I viewed the post, or I should call it an article, regarding the Parkland shooting that contained that the photograph of Mr. Fontaine.
Did you read the comments?
I've read some comments. There are also a bunch of comments on other sites regarding that photograph, but
Okay. When you were going through, and I'm going to mark these exhibits 2 and 3, when you were reviewing the documents that were previously produced in this case, give you some printouts. You understand that those are Bates labeled 252 and 296. Do you see that at the bottom?
I see that, yes.
Okay. Did you come across documents like this when you were reviewing?
I did see some pages that looked like this.
Okay. So when you had them, you couldn't access these either, correct?
No.
Okay. So when you got them, did you download them immediately?
When I got what?
Well, there's been an accusation in this case that the reason that the production looks like this is because we didn't download them when they were sent. However, we did, and you just verified that you don't have. Yours look like this too, correct?
What I have on the Dropbox.
Yeah. Okay. Did you ask anybody, hey, where are these web pages?
I think that what you just said was what was conveyed to me, which was there are links that we no longer have anymore.
Okay, so who told you that?
I don't know if I can testify as to,
Attorney-client,
right.
objection, attorney-client privilege.
Okay. When were you told that these web pages were no longer available?
When I was reviewing the Fontaine material this past week.
Okay, so it was in the last 7 days.
Right.
Once you informed them that the pages were no longer available, was that the end of the conversation, or did it go further?
When I was informed?
Yes.
No, that was the end of the conversation.
They just said, skip over those, we don't have them.
They did not say that. But I can't testify as to what our communications were.
Okay. Did you skip over them because you didn't have them?
I can't review something I don't have.
I can't either, so.
Right.
So we're finding some more common ground, Ms. Paz. Okay. Other than, is it your understanding that the document Fontaine's 1103 to 1104 has been produced to the plaintiffs in this case?
I know that we've given over everything that we have. I know that there have been some production issues as to what's been turned over to you, so I don't know what's been turned over to you. I know that it has a Bates label on it, so to me that means that it was produced.
Okay. I'm going to represent to you that I produced this.
Okay.
Other than the production that we've provided to defendants, is there any other knowledge of Mr. Fontaine that anyone at InfoWars has?
Based on my review, no, nothing that I can see. If you produce this, then we didn't have this in our material.
Okay. Did you review a letter that was sent after the article went up requesting a retraction and correction?
Yes, I did see that.
Okay. And the information in that states that Mr. Fontaine is in fact not Mr. Cruz, and the post is incorrect, correct?
That's what the letter says.
Okay, so that would be knowledge of the plaintiff as well, correct?
I don't think that's knowledge of the plaintiff.
Okay, prior to that letter, was the company aware they'd posted a picture of the wrong person?
Yes, because we had taken it down before we received that letter.
Okay. We'll get to that. How did the company, what information did the company become aware of to take down the post?
Just based on my comments, or I'm sorry, my communications with Mr. Daniels and interviews, I think that this photograph was originally seen on social media by Mr. Daniels. He had seen it in a number of places on social media. He put it in, it wasn't just on 4chan, it was on other locations on social media. And then he wrote the article. The article contained a photograph that says it's an alleged picture of the shooter. And then there were quickly chatter on social media that confirmed that that picture was not of the shooter. And so based on that, it was felt that that photograph was not accurate and taken down.
Good. Where was this chatter?
Based on my conversations with Mr. Daniels, it appears that it was on social media.
Okay. Did InfoWars take steps to save any of that?
To save what he reviewed?
To save whatever information on social media that he found chattering about the identity of Mr. Fontaine's photo.
No, but I will say that in this material, I don't know if it's production that you've produced or we've produced, there is a lot of social media information and chatter talking about the identity of the person in the photograph. So it could very well have been something like that, but did the company take any steps to preserve those particular posts? No.
Okay. And just for the record, everything you said about the article that you have in front of you marked Fontaine 1103 and 04, that's just conjecture. You have no idea when the company got that, if it ever got it, and if it's ever been reviewed by anybody other than an attorney.
This particular document?
Yes, ma'am.
I know that it was produced by you because you just told me it was produced by you.
Right.
So that's not conjecture.
You don't know, right, but you said, oh, well, this article has all this information about social media chatter, but...
No, this article doesn't, no.
Okay. Maybe I just misunderstood your question, and frankly, I think I got what I need out of this.
Okay.
The net worth of the company. Are you prepared to discuss that?
Yes.
Okay. What did you do to prepare for that topic?
So this also was in the binder from yesterday that we marked as Exhibit 8, I believe, but I do also have another copy of that. But essentially what I did was I sat with Melinda, who does the QuickBooks, and I went through the profit loss sheet for 2020. That's the most recent time that information is available. And we discussed the profit loss sheet.
Okay. What else did you do?
I discussed with Melinda the structure of the company so that I could understand the reasons why I was seeing what I was seeing in the numbers, and the relationship between free speech and other companies, such as PQPR, because there are some debts due and owing amongst the companies. And
wow, it's amazing that they were already thinking about this shit months ahead. So, in case you guys aren't familiar, InfoWars and Alex Jones and all of that took all of their... They don't owe people, quote-unquote, money. They owe themselves money. So, like, there's a bunch of alphabet soup companies that Alex Jones has shuffled money to. Like, whenever he bought his supplements or whatever he was selling on his website, he would buy them through a company he owned and then just wouldn't pay that company because he didn't have to, because he owned it. And so then he took that and, like, shat out a whole bunch of, like, little companies. Anyway, the whole thing is he took a bunch of money and was like, yoink, and hid it from the bankruptcy thing that's going on. There's a much better breakdown of this on Knowledge Fight. They did an episode on it with one of the lawyers in that case not too long ago that goes into a much better breakdown of this if you want to learn more about it.
I may have.
But that's kind of
reviewed
going on
Alex's
just a little bit
tax statements,
earlier recently this
which I believe
month.
you have. I think that's it.
Were they tax statements or were they bank statements?
I think they were his tax returns.
Spot, I don't have those.
Yeah, we definitely don't have it,
What do we do here?
because if she reviewed it.
Gotcha.
They were produced in the net worth discovery in the Sandy Hook case. I know that.
Not in Texas.
Mr. Reed specifically argued against using that case.
While you're looking for that, can I proceed a little bit with this?
Yeah.
Okay. So you discussed with Melinda the company structure, the profit loss, PQPR, and Mr. Jones's tax statements. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Are you positive?
I believe so. I think that's it. Yes.
Didn't ask if you believed you were positive.
That's it.
Okay. Because yesterday I swore I heard you say that you talked with Dustin Wittenberger.
Dustin is a tax attorney.
What'd you talk to him about?
I did not talk to him about the company's profit loss.
What'd you talk to him about?
I'm going to object to the extent that the attorney-client privilege and any conversations that she had with Mr. Wittenberg.
Who is Mr. Wittenberg? Mr. Wittenberg's a tax attorney for who?
I believe he's a tax attorney for the company.
Okay. I'm not going to ask you what you talked about. I'm going to ask why you talked to him.
I think that would necessitate I talk to you about what we talked about.
I don't think it would necessitate that. Why'd you talk to him?
Because I felt like maybe I should talk to him
Why'd you feel that way?
to get a better idea about the company, and that was pretty much it.
A better idea about what about the company?
Sir, I do believe that these are privileged conversations.
That's fine. I'm not asking what y'all talked about. I'm not asking about the communications. I'm asking your beliefs and feelings going forward in your preparation for today. And you said that you wanted to talk to him. And so I'm asking, why did you want to talk to him?
I didn't specifically ask to talk to him, no. So he came and I talked to him, but I didn't specifically request that I talk to him. I don't think I ever testified that I requested to speak to him.
Can you read back her prior answer? Please, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to be rude
No.
there.
Question, why'd you feel that way? Answer, to get a better idea about the company, and that was pretty much it.
Okay. So you said you talked to him because you wanted a better idea of the company, correct?
He was there, I spoke to him.
Not my question. Not even close. I said you spoke to him because you wanted a better idea of the company, correct?
He was there and he was available, and I could get a better idea about the company. So I said I could talk, so I figured I would talk to him.
What about the company?
About the structure of the company, about how the company runs. We also talked about some other privileged information, but that's pretty much it.
Okay. Do you do any white collar law?
Not usually, no.
During any of your preparation for yesterday or today, were there any instances where you drew concern as far as any ethical duties that may or may not have been violated by anyone in this case?
I'm sorry, can you be more specific? Anyone meaning who, like the attorneys?
Anybody you talk to.
Did I have a concern about ethical violations by attorneys, by accountants? Can we break that down a little
Sure,
bit?
we'll start with accountants.
Sure. No, I did not have a concern about ethical violations on the part of the accountants.
Did you speak with Robert Rowe?
I did.
Okay. Are you aware of his history in litigation regarding Sandy Hook cases?
I'm sorry, can you be more specific?
Yeah, did you know that the defendants in that case were sanctioned because Mr. Rowe had been found by the court to have manipulated the QuickBooks entries prior to producing them? Did you know that?
I'm aware there was an issue to which there was an profit loss statement or something to that effect, that there were missing lines that weren't produced at the bottom that were subsequently reproduced. So I'm aware of that issue, yes.
Did you read the court's order?
I did not read the court's order, no.
How did you find out the information you just regurgitated?
I was told that by Mr. Rowe, and it's in discussions with counsel.
Okay. Because I'm encouraged to read that order. What about any lawyers?
Steve, is
Do
that
I
what it's
have
showing?
concerns about whether lawyers in the case have breached duty to the company? Is that the question?
Only with regard to anything you came across while preparing for the last two depositions.
Anything regarding, you mean the financial statements, or anything in the entire universe of the case?
Anything that you came across in preparation for your depositions.
I did have concerns on behalf of the company regarding the company's prior representation, yes.
What about it?
The company's prior lawyers.
Okay, what about them?
I think that there are issues that there have been, even though the company has produced material to its attorneys, has not been produced appropriately and has resulted in many, if not all, of the sanctions.
Would that be in the Texas cases or the
Both.
Connecticut? Okay. Any lawyers in specifics?
I think that there are specific issues regarding Mr. Randazza, but although he doesn't have an appearance in this file, and Brad Reeves,
Okay.
and perhaps I can't remember his name before him.
There's six.
There's a bunch, and I agree with you, yes.
Okay, so Brad Reeves, Mr. Randazza, I'll just go Mr. Enoch.
I'm not sure about Mr. Enoch. I think he's done a pretty decent job.
T. Wade Jeffries.
I'm sorry, I don't know much about him. I don't have an
Okay.
opinion about him.
Was it Burnett?
Michael Burnett.
Michael Burnett.
I don't have an opinion about him either.
Yeah, Bob Barnes.
Barnes,
You did have an issue with him.
yes.
Okay. And what was it? Whitehurst? No. Wilhite.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have an opinion about him either.
Okay. And Miss Blah.
I think Miss Blood is fabulous.
I think she is too. Okay.
I also just realized something. So I've been hearing it a lot. I'm probably sure all y'all have too. You can hear the lawyer who's doing the deposition. You can hear him like sucking on a piece of candy. I have to imagine that is absolutely infuriating for these InfoWars fuckers, because I imagine that guy is just sitting there, leaning back, one arm up on his thing, sucking on a lollipop, going, and have you ever, found any ethical issues with any of the attorneys that have previously worked on this here case? Oh, God. He's killing it, is what he's doing.
With regards to Mr. Randazza, what were your kind of issues that you took with his representation?
The company thinks that there have been attempts by Mr. Randazza to gain entry into Texas pro hac vice. Those attempts were unsuccessful ultimately. But while those issues were pending, there were orders and timelines and deadlines and scheduling orders that were in place that weren't being responded to in a timely fashion. There's also some issues regarding the organization. I think we already talked about the bait stamps and how they're not necessarily organized appropriately, so we know what was produced where. I think I said that yesterday as well, that I'm not really sure what documents were produced in which cases. And that's a problem with the organization amongst the attorneys.
And I assume that was the problem for Mr. Barnes, Mr. Reeves, and Mr. Randazza?
Yes, I'm not really sure which time periods are overlapping and who was responsible for what, but generally, based on my discussions, those were my issues.
And we'll just go in order. We'll start with Mr. Randazza. So while his pro hoc was pending, his representation of the company caused a disorganization and an inability to tell whether or not something had or had not been produced, correct?
Right, and also, I don't even know whether he was communicating to us about what needed to be produced or what was still outstanding, if there was anything outstanding. So, in general, there were a lot of issues regarding production. Here.
Was Mr. Randazza, at the time, was he in charge of the litigation?
At what time?
When
So much room.
I don't know the time period, I'm sorry. I know there's some overlap. There were 6 or 7 other attorneys at various points, so I don't know the time period.
I'll just say this. At some point, since the Sandy Hook and the Fontaine case had been filed, Mr. Randazza was representing the defendants in these defamation suits.
Yes.
Okay. As he was doing his representation in the litigation, did he have an explanation as to when he would be filing a motion for pro hoc vice?
So pro hoc vice just means appearing in a court that you're not given bar status with. So the way that lawyer things work is you pass the bar exam in your state, right? And generally, I think there's also a bar exam. Most bar exams for the state also cover federal. So you can practice in federal court if you pass a state bar court or bar association test. But just because you have a state, you've passed the bar in one state does not mean that you are licensed to practice law in every other state. Because the U.S. is weird and everything is based on the states, you need to be able to file for pro hoc vice, which means finding an attorney local to that state willing to have you on as a tag-along, and then you file pro hoc vice with a court in that jurisdiction. And that allows you to practice law in a state that is not your home state for the purpose of the specific case. And the other lawyer basically has to keep an eye on you and make sure you're not fucking up in any weird or terrible ways. And that's your law weirdness with Jake for today.
Or, kind of anything like that?
You mean to the company?
Oh, yeah, correct, to his clients.
I think he was having those conversations ongoing about getting admitted, but we were not being informed as to, the issues regarding the production and the timelines with the case.
And at that point, he was in charge of
I believe so.
Things.
But I don't know, like I said, I don't know what dates there's those overlaps.
Okay. Yeah. I went over this a little bit with Mr. Schroyer in his deposition, and I'll ask you the same thing. Based on the information that you just testified to, has the company decided one way or another on legal malpractice as a potential asset?
We have not decided on, made any final decisions on legal malpractice yet.
Okay.
As to whether to file or who to file against, we've not made any final decisions on that.
Okay, has it been discussed, or is it going to be discussed?
It's being discussed.
Okay. I would ask that should that discussion happen and that go forward, that the plaintiffs in this case as a potential creditor just be made aware, because that would be a potential asset to the company.
Sure.
Was the company at all aware, did Mr. Randazza inform the company at any moment? It's okay.
I'm stupid. Can we go off the record a minute?
I'm okay. Oh, do you need to take that?
No, I need to. Are we off the record? No. Okay, I'm older than you guys. I don't know how to make it quit ringing through my phone, so let me just turn it off.
Okay.
And I sincerely apologize.
Not a good look in the middle of a deposition.
Just hold the button down.
Which button?
The power button.
The sleep button.
Which one's? Oh, look. My son just bought this for me. Is this the power button?
I don't do it.
Interesting question.
Oh, shit. So, y'all can all laugh at me, okay?
Oh, we are.
Sorry.
We are.
I'm sorry. I apologize for my language.
The attorney for InfoWars just told on court record, told Siri to fuck off. This is the days we live in, folks. These are the people who legislate our laws. They are the ones who stand up in court. These are the people who we trust to do things.
See, as to your question, I said she's fabulous. That's why.
Why? Because I don't know how to work an iPad.
More so your language, but
Okay.
I just proved the veracity of my opinion.
Did at any point during these proceedings did Mr. Randazza inform the company that he was practicing law in Texas without a license and without any order on a pro hoc vice?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. Did Mr. Randazza ever work on the preparation of any pleadings or motions or documents involved in this, in these two actions in Texas?
I don't know the answer if he worked on them, like as in drafts. I know he didn't sign them because he couldn't sign them and file them, but I don't know if he worked on them. No.
Okay. Did Mr. Randazza give any legal advice?
To the company?
Yes. Specific to the actions in Texas.
I mean, he represented the company, so
Okay.
I believe that that's a yes answer.
Yes.
I mean, I haven't had any conversations with Mr. Randazza, so I don't know for sure.
Did you receive? We'll go back up to the net worth now, because this is kind of all tied into it.
Sure.
When you talked with Mr. Wittenberg, did you review any documents that he gave you?
I never spoke to Mr. Wittenberg.
Okay, I thought you had conversations with Dustin Wittenberg.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's his name. I didn't know his last name. You're right. I did talk to Mr. Wittenberg.
Did you review any documents when you spoke with him?
No.
Okay.
He didn't show me anything.
Yeah. Okay. Start hitting the outline now.
Wacky pipe.
Oh, there she is. Thanks. Oh. All right. It's going to be Exhibit 4. Did you review this prior to today?
No.
Which number is it?
What do you mean?
I don't remember which one I'm going.
Oh, that's the topic number.
Oh, there's tab number. You said you did not look at the discovery responses?
I don't think I saw this. No.
Okay.
Aside from the pleadings, the petitions, I think the petitions were the only real pleadings I reviewed. So no, I didn't
Okay.
read this.
I'll point you to request for production number 4 on page 3.
Okay.
And request for production number 4 on page 3 says, all communications within InfoWars relating to the plaintiff, the article in question, or efforts to ascertain the identity of the Douglas High School shooter.
I see that.
In response, the answer is, after a diligent search, no responsive documents in free speech systems, possession, custody, or control were identified.
I see that.
Okay. Can you tell me what this search, who did the search?
So after speaking to Mr. Daniels, once we were informed that there was going to be a lawsuit, he searched through his personal computer, he searched through his phone, and I believe searched through anything that would have been on his computer at work, and there was nothing found. So we didn't have anything in our custody.
Okay. So it was just Mr. Daniels doing the search?
Mr. Daniels searched his specific phone and computer, and I believe, I'm sorry, let me just amend my response. I think that also
I don't want thinking.
because we did search our emails, and that was not done by Mr. Daniels.
Okay.
So we did search the emails as well.
Okay. Who searched the emails?
I don't know the identity of the person who searched the emails. I'm not sure. I think, and like I said, I'm not sure. So
Then we can end
right.
it there. I don't know is an answer that.
I'm not sure.
Okay. And
I don't know is maybe my favorite answer.
how do you know that someone did an email search?
Because we've produced many thousands of pages of emails.
In this case?
In the amongst the two cases, I don't know in this case specifically, but I know we've produced many thousands of emails.
Have any emails at all been produced in this case regarding Mr. Fontaine, or specifically the information requested in request for production 4?
I don't believe that we had any responsive emails on Mr. Fontaine.
Didn't ask if you believed. If you did, I asked it.
We did not produce any emails because there are no responsive emails on Mr. Fontaine.
Okay.
That's a fucking answer.
When was the search done?
I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. What were the searching and culling terms?
Because I don't know who did the search, I'm not sure who did the search terms.
Okay. Did you, when you came and did your interviews with members at the company, were you given any sort of restrictions on your access of who you could talk to?
No,
Okay. Did you ask who did the search?
I don't remember.
Did you ask when a search was done?
Well, here's the reason why I don't know, is just because I know we've been there was some third-party person, and I'm not really sure who or when that was, so I'm not sure.
So you mean third party as in the defendants hired a person from a different company to search their own system?
No, I don't know necessarily search. I know that there was a mirror image done of our hard drives, and I don't know who did that, but I don't know who did the search. If it was that third party or someone in the company, it may very well have been Mr. Zimmerman, but I don't know.
Okay. And did you ask Mr. Zimmer if he did the search?
You know what, I may have, but I don't remember as I sit here right now.
Okay. Did you ask Mr. Zimmer what searching and culling terms he used in the ESI?
That's assuming he did it, I don't know.
Okay. Did you ask if he was aware of who did it?
You know what, I don't recall.
Do you know when this third party imaged in the defendant's ESI system?
No.
Okay. Do you remember how you became aware that a third party contractor had imaged the hard drives at the defendant's place of business?
I know that based on my discussions with counsel that that had been done. I just didn't know how or when.
Wrong pipe.
I'm sorry?
I said, excuse me,
sorry.
water went down the wrong pipe. Okay, so earlier you gave me a definitive response that there are no communications, correct?
I'm sorry, communications regarding request for production 4?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm starting to fade. My voice is starting to get itchy. So I think I'm going to call it for tonight. I hope to be back in the next couple of days. Again, I am planning on doing a big old fatty research stream where we do we look up what are the most common arguments against climate change, and then kind of work backwards from there. We're doing our research, getting a whole bunch of data points, understanding how to make the arguments better to counteract the false narrative that global warming isn't happening. Because once again, climate change is a real thing, folks, and it's existential threat, and it's terrifying, and you should all be scared. So, yeah, we'll be getting into that next time, one of these next times I stream. I won't guarantee it's the next time, because it's probably going to require a lot of thought and vocal usage, and I may or may not have that in me. But, as I am a fake Jake, I bid thee adieu, and remember, I'm just a guy, just a person. So are you. Catch you on the flip side. Toodles.